Shedeur Sanders provided a dud of an NFL debut, but it's not all his fault. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Shedeur Sanders struggled in relief of Dillon Gabriel, but it's not all his fault. I'll explain why. What does all of this mean for the quarterback position moving forward here in Cleveland? We'll get to that. Plus, Shedeur is the headliner tonight, but there were a lot of other things that happened in this game, including Myles Garrett just reaching more milestones and making us all realize what's really happening here in Cleveland. I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And yes, we finally, after many, many weeks of waiting, many months, really, of debating whether or not it should be Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel starting for this Browns team, Shedeur Sanders made his NFL debut tonight on this very field behind me here, Huntington Bank Field, for the Cleveland Browns. He came in the second half, took over for Dillon Gabriel, who was going through the concussion protocol, never returned to the game, and so it was Shedeur Sanders' job the rest of the way to sort of handle this thing and lead the Browns in the second half of this game. My hair is doing crazy things right now, by the way. Anyway, listen, it was a rough debut, and I can say that because he even said that himself. Shedeur, admittedly, after the game, made it known that he didn't think he played very well. Here, let's hear what he has to say, and we'll talk about it some more.
I don't think I played good. I don't think I played good at all. I think it's a lot of things, we need to look at, during the week and go and just get comfortable even throwing routes, with Jerry and throwing routes with all those guys. So I think that was my first ball to him all year. But other than that, I just think overall we just got to go next week and understand so then we have a week to prepare stuff I like to do.
Shedeur, do you think that if you play next week, if Dillon doesn't clear protocol, do you feel like if the game plan is designed for you and you get those first team reps, those starting reps in practice, that this is just going to be a whole different ball game for you when you get out there?
No, the most I can ask for is opportunity. See, that's an uncontrollable thing that I'm not able to control, and that's not, nothing I should speak on, just being the quarterback of this team and this franchise. They gave me an opportunity. I ain't do up to my expectation and enough to get us a win, so I just got to take that one to the chin.
So there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost being what I said before I played the clip. Admittedly, Shedeur Sanders told you it wasn't a good performance, and I don't think there's any way to beat around the bush. I don't care if you're a Shedeur supporter, a Shedeur apologist, somebody who doesn't care for Shedeur, somebody who wants the Browns to draft a quarterback next year and don't care for either of these quarterbacks. Whatever stance you have, there's no way to leave this game tonight and feel like Shedeur Sanders put together a good debut. He was 4-16 for 47 yards. Not great. One interception as well. It got erased thanks to Carson Schlesinger, literally one play later, intercepting the Ravens on a deflected ball and sort of made that not matter in the long run. But listen, the offense had 54 net yards when he was out on the field running the offense in the second half. 54 net yards in the entire second half. They scored 0 points. They converted 4 first downs. They went 3 and out 3 different times. There was a moment at the end where it looked like there was some life and that maybe Shedeur had this magic moment sort of brewing where he leads him down the field. Nice ball over the middle to sort of start the drive to Harold Fannin Jr. for 25 yards. Gets him down to the 25-yard line, and he had a couple shots at the end zone. One eludes some pressure, moves to his left, throws to Isaiah Bond, sort of streaking across the back of the end zone, a little too high, and it goes out of bounds. But it was a tough play. It was a tough throw on the move. And then, a really good pass to give Gage Larvadain a chance in the end zone on a fade route. Gidge gets his hands on it, tries to bring it in. It gets deflected out of his hands by the DB for the Ravens, and it falls incomplete. There was a conversation about maybe PI there from some people I know, but it didn't end up happening. And the Browns ultimately ended up turning it over on downs, and it was all said and done. And they went out without much of a fight. And listen, like it's not. Those were the moments that I think maybe make you leave this game feeling like there's room for Shedeur to grow and play better, and that there's some positive things that can happen here. Like the fact that he got better as the game went on is an important thing to note. Like that's not for nothing. I think there's value in that. But I think the biggest part of this is, even though it was a bad performance, and I think we all have to sort of accept that, like what happens from here, and we'll get to all that coming up, but what happens from here is like, I don't know what, let me backtrack for a second. There's never a perfect moment or a perfect opportunity to like put a guy out there and have them make their NFL debut. I want to be clear about that. Like it's never the perfect situation. It's always sort of, you're always kind of getting thrown to the fire, and sometimes you have to learn that way. I think Shedeur showed in some respects, especially as the game went on, that he can learn as he goes, and that's an important thing for a young quarterback who's trying to, make it in this league. So I think that's notable. I also think too, like, I don't know how much him not getting reps with the first team at all matters when you're just kind of getting thrown to the fire, or how much different that makes it. But I've seen evidence that it can have an impact. For example, Tyler Shuck, another rookie quarterback in this league. Go look at his numbers the first two games he played where he came in during the game. 17 of 30 his first time out. He threw an interception. It was not good. 56 completion percentage. Then he started starting games a week later. And he went 15 of 24, 62 completion percentage, 176 yards, threw his first touchdown, had an interception. And then his latest performance before the bye week here for the Saints, he was 19 of 27, 70 completion percentage, and 282 yards with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, that's steady growth. That's steady progress. And I don't know why Shedeur Sanders can't necessarily follow a similar trajectory if he gets more opportunities to play and to start for this Cleveland Browns team. Like, it's not always going to be, again, it's not a perfect situation. It rarely is for guys who make their first start, especially at that position. You're coming in when a guy gets hurt, and you're trying to sort of see what you can do when you haven't gotten any first team reps during the week, or the game plan wasn't really designed for you during the week. And the first team rep part of this is important. I understand. And if you ask people around the NFL, they will tell you, generally during the week of practice, the number one quarterback takes most of the reps, if not all the reps, with the first team. But the Browns earlier this year didn't do that. Like, they had Joe Flacco on this roster, and they were conceding some reps to Dillon Gabriel just to kind of have him ready as a rookie in this league, because they didn't feel like Joe Flacco needed him. So Shedeur Sanders isn't getting that same treatment now with Dillon. Maybe that's the norm. Maybe that's how it works with other teams. Sure. And you have two rookie quarterbacks. And if you're willing to let the other one be one play away from coming into a game like he was tonight, I just think it might make sense for him to get some of those reps during the week. And it probably would have benefited him. You heard the clip. You heard what he said. That was the first time he's thrown a ball to Jerry Jeudy all year. Like, there's something to be said for like knowing the nuances of how your teammates play and what routes they're running and what they do, and knowing where to find them. So yes, it was a bad outing for Shedeur Sanders, but does this one have to define him, and do we have to write him off right now? No, because there's certainly plenty of evidence that suggests when you're the starter and you get an entire week of preparation built around you, your strengths, what you want to do, and you're sort of prepared to play that game, it can make a world of difference. So it was rough. I think that tonight proved. I know people wanted the magic. They wanted the Shedeur Sanders magic, and you almost got it at the end there. And I think that it would have been very Baker Mayfield-esque here on Thursday Night Football those years ago, where he mounts the comeback and then everyone's all bought in and they're in love with the guy they think is the franchise quarterback. That type of thing would have played out again tonight if Shedeur Sanders had pulled something off like that at the end of the game here. I have no doubts about that. But you didn't get that tonight. That's okay. But I think what this shows you is, like, the Browns are still figuring out where they're going at the quarterback position moving forward, and that they have to certainly make sure they get the best read on these guys the rest of the way that they can. Shedeur Sanders, most notably, who hasn't played yet, other than this one half today, and see what they actually have in these quarterbacks, because like there's certainly places he can grow. There's certainly, when you build a game plan around him, it's going to look different. And I think the Browns certainly owe it to themselves and owe it to the fans to showcase what he can do when he's a starting quarterback for this team, and not just coming in cold as the backup to Dillon Gabriel. We'll see. When actually, that's where I'd want to go next, because Kevin Stefanski did talk about where they go from here in terms of who will start for this team in Week 12 against the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll tell you what he said, and we'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no averages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk to text delivered on the nation's fastest 5G network, or largest 5G network. You can also bring your phone and keep the same number and your contacts. Here's the other thing. The setup is super easy. You kept your number, and it's up and running in minutes. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 is required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time, new customer offer for 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plans. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details. So, as I said, it is not all Shedeur Sanders' fault that he struggled in his debut. Like, yes, there's things that he still has to improve on. He would admit that. He basically admitted that in the clip. He said he didn't think he played that well. And I think there's something, respectable about that. I'll also tell you this. Myles Garrett said after the game that Shedeur addressed the team in the locker room and tried to put the loss on himself. And they basically shut that down and said, no, Myles shut it down and said no. They weren't going to let him sort of own that one, and they were putting it all on themselves. And here's the thing. It's not like the offense was great when Shedeur wasn't out there either. Sure, they didn't score in the second half, but they essentially only produced 9 points, all field goals, when Dillon Gabriel was running the offense in the first half, because the defense provided the only touchdown of the day for the Browns with the pick six from Devin Bush. So, frankly, it's not all on Shedeur that they lost this game. You would have liked to see a better performance, no doubt. But it doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. And I do think things probably look somewhat different if he is the starter for this team and they prepare him as such. Now, that said, I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity next week or not. Kevin Stefanski was asked after the game whether he'd go back to Dillon Gabriel if he clears the concussion protocol this week. And he said yes. So that's that's kind of what's looming here going into Week 12 now, is the Browns will have to weigh who's going to start based off of the injury report and what Dillon's able to do or not able to do based off of the concussion protocol, which is different for everyone. You never know. Like, some guys clear the protocol faster than others. Some guys, they're back practicing as soon as Wednesday. Some guys, it takes them all week. And then they don't clear it even until Saturday, the day before the game. You just don't know what to expect with any of these guys. It can be it's a wide variance of things that can play out as they try to get through the protocol. And so that could pave the way for Shedeur Sanders to make his first start next week. Or it could be that Dillon's back under center by the end of the week and he's taken the reins yet again. Now, in terms of what the right choice is, you were deprived of a second half of Dillon Gabriel, but what you saw in the first half wasn't anything necessarily different from what we had seen from Dillon Gabriel before. He was highly efficient, 7 of 10, 70 completion percentage, 68 yards though was all he had to show for it. And like, the 3 misses felt like they were at inopportune times and that they were bad passes. There was a dirted ball in there, I know, on a key, I think, third down play. And so, like, it was still more of the same, the inconsistencies where he makes a really good throw. He had a really good play and a really good play designed by Tommy Reese, by the way, in the second quarter, where they faked a screen to Malachi Corley. They had done that so many times that the Ravens bid on it. and then you get Cedric Tillman sort of streaking down the middle of the field and dropped a nice ball into him for a big gain. It was the biggest play he had of the day, and that set you up for a score, a field goal. So like there was moments again, but there was also moments where he looked like the same Dillon Gabriel that struggles with consistency and can't seem to produce with this offense. And again, same things apply to both these guys. A lot of the same issues persist. Offensive line is an issue. I think we saw that especially when Shedeur was out there, because I think one thing Shedeur is going to have to sort of get better at is his clock, his internal clock, getting rid of the football faster. He held the ball a little long at times, and I think that came back to bite him, but the offensive line didn't do any favors. There were times where guys were just getting beat right off the line of scrimmage. But that's been an issue all year. Wide receivers, Harold Fannin, I think, had at least one drop in there. So, that continues to persist. We know the shortcomings of this offense. So I don't know that either guy is going to necessarily thrive and be like lighting it up. But at this point in the season, I think it's to me, you need to figure out what you have in these guys. And so it makes sense that you would want to now play and pivot to Shidor Sanders and play him the rest of the way, even after the rough performance that you saw today. Because like I said, if you prioritize him as the starter and you get him prepared for throughout the week of practice, it probably looks different. It probably looks better. I think I can say that safely. Same way that it did for Tyler Shuck as he became a starter. He went from just filling in the middle of a game to starting. So it sounds like Kevin Stefanski's sticking with Dillon Gabriel if he clears the concussion protocol, but we'll have to see how the week progresses. You could be seeing Shedeur Sanders back under center next week, making his first start for the Cleveland Browns, his first NFL start in a setting out in Las Vegas against the Las Vegas Raiders, where, he gets a chance to go on the road and try to win against a team that the Browns theoretically should have a pretty good shot against, because that's a bad football team too. But we don't know how that's going to play out. Kevin sticking to his guns when it comes to, hey, listen, we want to see these guys through and give them a chance and give Dillon a chance to sort of work through some things and develop and get better. And I think that that's admirable, and I would want the same for Shedeur Sanders once he gets out there. You do need to give both these guys a fair number of games to sort of evaluate them, though, and that's where my head's at with it. Like, okay, Dillon now had 5.5 games. There's 7 games to go. I don't know if you try to split the difference and give him each, 6 and 6. He gets next. This would have been his 6th game, but theoretically they each get a half, and then they each get 6 games. So Dillon gets one more full game before well, I guess he'd have to. That doesn't really work out perfectly. This is not a math podcast, by the way. But regardless, like, the Browns owe it to themselves at this point to make sure they get a sense of who both these guys are. And I think you've seen enough from Dillon Gabriel at this point to get at least a decent read on him and understand where he's developing and where he's not developing, that I think it's time to do the same with Shedeur Sanders. I would be fine with them straight up just sticking with Shedeur Sanders and rolling from here to see what he can kind of do. But they don't seem as inclined to do that. Now, I do think that him getting thrown into the fire like that, you saw some of the shortcomings that he has in his game. But if they're going to use if they're going to use the excuse for Dillon that he's a young quarterback developing and they need to see more, then the same thing applies to Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't get judged just based off of one half of play that was obviously pretty rough, making his first NFL start in his debut at this level. Like, that's not fair either. So Kevin seems stuck to, he is more inclined to stick with Dillon Gabriel if he's healthy. He made that clear after the game. But we'll see how the week progresses, and you could be seeing Shedeur Sanders start. I will say this. If Shedeur plays and Dillon is out, we are talking about a Wally Pipp situation here. Not that Dillon Gabriel has separated himself so much that it's a hard bar to clear here. But listen, Shedeur talks all the time about having opportunities and just being grateful for opportunities. Well, he's got an opportunity here if Dillon Gabriel can't play because of the concussion to go ball out in Las Vegas and maybe just take the job for himself. And so that's what I think is an interesting sort of next part of this, is how the week plays out, who actually is going to be the starter, and what it means going forward. Because I do think Dillon Gabriel, even if he is back under center next week, should be on a very, very short leash when it comes to how much longer he gets to sort of showcase what he can do and how he's developing. At some point, you got to go to Shedeur, like full time, and invest in him and build a game plan around him. And so even if that doesn't come next week, I think that's right around the corner, and it's sooner rather than later. But if Shedeur does get to play next week, this is his chance, without question, to take the starting job from Dillon Gabriel and never look back if he can play at a high level and actually produce something with an offense that's obviously struggled this year. That is the biggest thing that I think, the biggest outcome that can potentially play out next week if Shedeur Sanders is back under center against the Raiders, is that he walks away as the definitive starter if he plays well and you see something from the offense that you just haven't seen yet. So again, a lot that still has to happen. Got to see what happens with Dillon Gabriel in that concussion protocol. But I want to make it clear here. The message from Kevin Stefanski after the game was that he's going to stick with Dillon if he's able to play and he's healthy next week. So just know that and know that we'll have to sort of wait to see what transpires with the concussion protocol situation to get a real sense of who's going to start next week. But a big opportunity for Shedeur if he does, before they, to maybe take this job before they even were going to pivot to him initially. And at some point here down the line, they have to pivot to him, because the rest of the season, 7 games to go, you're 2-8. It becomes about, learning what you have at the quarterback position moving forward. With all that said, listen, I know Shedeur Sanders is the headline tonight, but he sort of overshadowed a brilliant performance from Myles Garrett that goes to waste yet again against the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk about it coming up in the Lockdown Browns podcast. The NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next, to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. And that's what makes FanDuel so great for users. They have options for whatever type of bettor you are. Maybe you just want to play a player hitting a certain milestone, like Myles Garrett, over 3 sacks, which he eclipsed tonight. Maybe you want to combine that milestone with a couple others and build out that same game parlay, throw a money line on there. Speaking of money lines, you can just play the money line in real time as the action unfolds. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets to use when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys. So listen, as much as this conversation tonight is about Shedeur Sanders, and rightfully so, people have been waiting to see him, and he is obviously, as I mentioned many times, a polarizing player for a number of reasons. His debut, him getting out on the field, overshadowed what was another brilliant performance from Myles Garrett. Like, I'm running out of superlatives. I'm running out of words for Myles Garrett. He was asked the other day if he thinks he's playing the best of his career, and he kind of downplayed and said, I don't think about it that way. But you'd be hard-pressed to say he's not playing the best he's ever played in his career. He had 4 sacks today, guys. 4. I mean, you probably watched the game, but 4 sacks. He's had 10 in the last 3 games alone. 5 against New England, 1 last week against the Jets, 4 today. And he's up to 13 sacks. He's up to 15 sacks on the season. He has 6 straight seasons of at least 12 sacks, which is more seasons in a row consecutively with that number, at least, than Lawrence Taylor. He's the only player in history to have 6 straight seasons with 12 or more sacks in a season. It's his third 4+ sack game of his career. He broke a career high for sacks through 10 games with the mark he got to today. He became the 4th player since 1982, when sacks first became a stat, with at least 14 sacks in 5 career seasons. I'm going to say that again. The 4th player since 1982, which is when sacks first started being tracked, with at least 14 sacks in 5 career seasons. He joined Hall of Famers Reggie White and Kevin Green and Bruce Smith in that feat. And by the way, he could very well be on a path towards breaking the single season sack record. He was remarkable again tonight. It was phenomenal to watch, as it always is each and every single week when he's out there. And I think it's what's been maybe the most disappointing and frustrating thing about this season with the, following the Cleveland Browns, covering the Cleveland Browns as I do, is that like we get into sports, we follow sports, we cheer for certain teams, we root for certain players because we want to see greatness. We want to see memorable, historic performances and moments that we've just never heard of before or seen before in our lives. And Miles is giving you that this season. He gives you that quite a bit. There's other moments throughout his career that we can think back to. And you're just left awe-inspired. Like I said, there's no more words to describe him at this point. And it all comes to a head when the game goes final and the Browns have scored 16 points or whatever it is, and they lose yet again, and you realize that they're sitting here at 2-8 on the season. Like it's just wild. It's wild that this player, who Mark Andrews, by the way, on Friday called arguably the greatest athlete in NFL history, and maybe the best pass rusher in NFL history, which I don't think is hyperbole at this point. I do think he is teetering on those in that conversation into that discussion without question. Maybe he doesn't have the winning that Lawrence Taylor does, and so he'll never get there in that regard, and that'll be used against him unless the Browns can somehow sort of build this thing around him moving forward and get back in on that type of trajectory here soon. But in terms of just like pure talent and ability and performance, he is without question up there as one of the best ever in this game, if not the best. And I don't think that's, again, hyperbolic to say. But again, it's crazy to just sit here and watch these performances. They're brilliant. They're amazing. It's why we love sports. And then you're just reminded week over week, he's doing this on a team and just being completely wasted week after week as well. It's crazy. I understand the frustrations from him in that regard. I think his defensive teammates are starting to feel those frustrations even more, and I'll talk about that more with you on our bonus episode on Monday, because there were some certain things said in the locker room that I think are notable that I want to get into. But I'm running out of things to say about him. But this is, one of the best seasons I've seen from an individual player on either side of the ball ever. And it's unfortunate that it's on a team that's 2-8. He's almost single-handedly changes the game for you, wins the game for you. But this defense can only do so much, and it's exhausting for everyone, myself included. I come here and talk on this microphone to you every single week on this field or other fields around the NFL, and I try to, find different talking points, but the story's the same. Every week, it's, hey, defense standing on their head. Hey, Myles Garrett, brilliant yet again. 4 sacks, 5 sacks, whatever it is. But the offense can only score 13 points or 16 points or 17 points and sometimes 20 points, but rarely 20 points, and they lose the football game. It's the same storyline over and over again, and I can understand why that would be exhausting to everybody, the players included. And that's and it also, by the way, yes, Miles is Miles, and he's as brilliant as he is. Carson Schlesinger, rookie season for the ages. He had 10 more tackles today, 2 tackles for a loss, another interception. If he locked up, in my estimation, defensive rookie of the year today. As long as he doesn't get hurt and completely fall off a cliff here the rest of the season, it's his award. I have no doubts about that. He's going to win this thing. And listen, he might even be in the mix coming up here for defensive player of the year, alongside his own teammate Myles Garrett. That might be his stiffest competition for that award. I'm being sort of hyperbolic there, but both those guys playing out of their minds this season, and it's all for nothing. It's the unfortunate reality about where the Browns are right now. It's also why you hope they can turn around sooner rather than later, but I don't know that that's a guarantee either. And it was phenomenal. I am honored to watch and cover Myles Garrett on a weekly basis, on a day-to-day basis, and follow his journey and in the road that he's blazing for himself to the Hall of Fame. But it's sobering when you look up at the scoreboard and realize, wow, they have this player doing these things, and it's consistently for nothing as they fall short again and again and again. It's just wild. It's absolutely wild. And I know there's a lot of people who don't have sympathy for Miles because he took the money and all that, but I don't. That doesn't. Like here's the thing: him taking the money. Mostly that was about making sure you performed on the field. He's living up to that money today. Today, all the days, this entire season, he has lived up to the money that he's making. And so the money was mostly about, hey, we believe that you're still going to play at a high level and we're paying you to do so. And he's meeting that. He's meeting those expectations. So there should be no complaints there when it comes to Miles. It's just unfortunate that this generational player that the Browns have on their hands has not seen a lot of winning and frankly is being wasted on this team. And I know I've talked about this before, but I keep coming back to it. When you have a 4-sack performance, it's going to be a topic of conversation. And I'll say this too, like the difference between Miles and I guess Carson's having a great season, but he's a rookie. So you're like, he might have more of this in him. We get to watch him for years to come. Miles, that's not necessarily the case. Time is less in his favor as he approaches the age of 30. That, he's going to be doing this for a longer period of time. And you just hope at some point, I'll leave you with this. You just hope at some point the Browns can get their you-know-what together to give this guy and produce for this guy a team that he deserves to go chase championships and be in that conversation because he is that caliber of a player. And I will also say, as I alluded to, that was one of the conversations that came up in the locker room tonight, which we'll talk about more on a Monday bonus episode of the Locked On Browns podcast. If you liked what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. For your second listen, make sure you get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. As to Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins got you covered over there. You can find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs and Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer with the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again on Monday. A lot more to break down from this game. Until then, have a great night, Cleveland.